Proda ends up calling the little yellow one to try and get him to push the dragon egg towards him. That's what Amerlinho started to do, exactly that, but apparently he wasn't able to push the egg. It was very heavy. He tries to try, but he ends up getting tired. Proda then asks the little guy to look for some stones and thicker branches, and then it was to do that. This is the principle of leverage. He said he knew that he didn't understand, but he just had to do what he was saying. After a while, Amerlinho appears with a stone and then uses the stick between the stone and the egg to push himself. He starts to exert a lot of strength while Proda said he was supposed to succeed. He could, he was strong. He actually succeeds and ends up falling to the ground while the egg goes towards Proda. Then he takes advantage and rolls the egg with its vines. He wondered how he was going to deal with this dragon egg. It was so big that he couldn't even handle it. He couldn't swallow it. He starts to think that if he could break the egg, it would spill everywhere, and he still couldn't eat it. He couldn't swallow it alive and couldn't break it. He starts to go crazy because he had a delicious dragon egg in front of him and would probably attract other carnivores. He wonders what he should perhaps absorb with its roots, but all of its 3 root blocks are already full and cannot fit more. But then he realizes what that noise is. He can hear a cracking noise. The egg starts to crack. Proda said that there was no way it wasn't possible. He wonders if there would be a baby dragon being born there. At that moment, when the egg ends up breaking, it was a half-humanoid creature. It was very strange because he was expecting a dragon. Silver wondered what was happening to the dragon egg. What do you mean a girl was born, and as she had clothes right after she was born? It didn't make any sense. He saw that she was crying. He said that if a 2 m tall man can turn into a flower with a big mouth, then I guess it was possible for him. He also commented on the horns on her head, which must have been dragon horns. She even had a tail, maybe it was the dragon's tail, and this was a baby dragon. So there was this. She starts eating the eggshell literally, and Proda gets nervous about this situation, saying that she was a silly girl because that wasn't meant for eating. But then he stops for a moment and says that it looks like he's already read some fantasy novels that he later, when the baby dragon was born, ate his own eggshell, and she was all happy until she looked where she was sitting down. She started trying to remove the shell that was on top, but she couldn't. But with so much strength, she succeeds and ends up falling on the floor. Proda realizes that he was in a hole, and that little baby looks at the floor, then looks at Proda, who is staring at her too, and out of nowhere she says, "Mommy." He gets very nervous, asking why she was calling him mom, while Kalango didn't say anything. He starts thinking, saying that he remembers hearing that birds consider the first living thing they see to be their mother. But he didn't expect not at all that dragon babies were the same way. But he also starts to think that he was a guy. Didn't he have like him being her mom? But she didn't want to know. She hugged Proda, calling him mom and mom, while Proda told her that she had misunderstood because he wasn't her mommy and she was supposed to be kind. Calling her a giant baby because that way she could break her waist. But she didn't want to know. And she continued calling mom so much that she starts to kind of push him and dig him out. He nervously asks if she was trying to uproot him. He asked her to call him whatever she wanted, but she had to skip him. Otherwise, he would really die. Proda said that it seemed like she could understand him, and then she looks at Kalango without understanding. Nothing. Then she out of nowhere grabs Kalango, hugging him, calling him daddy. But Proda didn't like that at all. He asks what kind of family drama this is. He was the father, not the mother, and that one wasn't her father. He was practically a puppy. And then she looks at Proda, looks at Kalango, and starts calling him a puppy. The only thing to notice that she changed so quickly was if she was very smarter than he expected. Proda even tries to ask her who he was, and she says mom. She even takes advantage and says that she was hungry. Proda gets depressed, so she looks to the side and saw a lot of insects gathered there, and she says it was food, while Proda gets very nervous because she was eating his food. After a few seconds, he realized that she had eaten everything. He didn't let her. Nothing for him, while she said that now she was sleepy, and she just ends up lying on the sand that was there in front of Proda. Proda said that everything was wrong there. It wasn't possible from one day to the next. He became a father. The scene ends up cutting to the next morning, and the girl woke up. She screamed and cried that she was very hungry, and he called her a good girl, and she wasn't supposed to cry because he would send the puppy to look for food, while Kalango also told her not to cry. The PR ends up calling the yellow one and asks if he could help get food for that little girl, while he said that yes, he could, and he would go to the hunt. He would ask her to stop crying because the yellow one went looking for food. He started talking about how bad it was. It was very difficult. His head was spinning. He was already tired. After a while, Emerlinho decides to bring several foods. They were both drooling with hunger, but he left everything for the girl. He asked her to please leave some for her father. After she ate all that, her belly ended up making noise, and she starts crying again, saying that she was hungry. Proda said that so many animals were eaten, and no, it didn't fill her. She started screaming, crying that she was hungry, while the yellow one went out hunting. Proda said he was giving up. He couldn't do it. A month goes by, and Proda was holding a beetle. He was totally malnourished, and don't think that the yellow one was different. He was just skin and bones. Proda tells Emerlinho that he caught a lot of bulls that day, and it must have been tiring. Proda asks if he wanted to. But Yellow said he didn't want it. It wasn't for her. She started laughing along with him, saying that it was parents' empathy. He wouldn't eat either. It was all for their daughter. He starts saying that that little girl was really a dragon, wasn't a bird or something. He is surprised that she was eating bugs all day, and yet was growing fast. Silver was already nervous and told Emerlinho that her appetite would only increase, and he couldn't help it. He would have to hunt sooner or later. Then Yellow said he had an idea. It was just for them to make a bait and catch a big frog. But Silver said it wasn't very dangerous. Emerlinho said he had King so everything was fine. He told Emerlinho to just be careful and not to be reckless. He ends up sighing and looks at the girl. He said that raising a child was very difficult, and he started thinking about his mother. He finally understood everything now, and his difficulty also made him yellow. After a while, he comes back, saying that he was seeing them there, but Silver said he didn't see any frogs. There it was, a wasp. It wasn't a frog. Emerlinho ran a lot, and it wasn't just one era. Silver was in despair, saying that Yellow used the kanjer to poke the wasp's nest. The guy is crazy. Proda ends up calling the little Yellow to take his daughter and hide her behind. The stings of those wasps are useless against him, and he could take care of them all. He begins to think that although he has opened many boxes, he has added a vine, and the sharpness of the thorns increased, and the wasps were heading towards him. He starts playing the kanjer. He said that this was his gun, his bullet, his ammunition. He starts hitting several wasps that end up falling immediately, but others join in trying to hit him. Silver starts saying that his ammunition was already running out so fast, but he said that the kanjer was his first wave of attack. He still had the second. He starts shouting, "Whip," and starts whipping all the wasps quickly. After annihilating that army of wasps, he finally said that it was actually easy, and he had already ended it all there. Little Yellow ends up arriving, calling his big brother, and then his daughter ends up saying he was incredible. He was the best, and he asks Emerlinho to go there and get the bodies of the wasps and the kanjers too, as he was far away. He said that with so many wasps this big, it must be enough for his daughter for a few days. The little girl also told her father that she would get it too, and then they gathered the mountain of wasps. Proda said that it was too much. It's been a month since they finally got a satisfactory meal. Then the bearded man ends up showing up, saying that being a father is not easy at all. Silver comments that the girl was in the growth phase, and that's why she had to eat a lot and grow. After a while, Emerlinho was fighting some frogs. The frog tries to hit him, but he says, "See?" and the frog starts to run while Emerlinho kicks him. Emerlinho looks for a moment and takes a stance. Bang! As if it were a weapon. Then Prota's spines end up wrapping around the frog, catching it and squeezing it. The frog even spits blood, and in the end, the frog had been killed and ends up falling to the ground. Prota tells his daughter that now it was meal time. They were updating their diet, no more insects. Now it's time to eat meat. He starts to think that he became very strong, even more so after upgrading his vines again. He could easily crush frogs, and it was very practical and quick. Yellow already starts to cut the frog with the help of Prota, and after the girl started eating, she said that it was very good and delicious. Prota was very happy for his daughter to be like that. Some time passes, and Prota explains that the yellow color attracted predators to his territory, and they used him as bait, so he made the most of it. He caught several monsters, but he talked about one thing that worried him: the danger that the little yellow one was going through on the edge of life and death. He was afraid that one day there would actually be a very strong predator. Besides, the girl was growing quickly. In a month, she grew up and took on the appearance of a 5-year-old child. In fact, her appetite was also bigger, so they had to worry about the food and find a way to capture other larger animals. If it was a mountain cat or a hyena, maybe they could win. But the yellow one realized that the PR was trying to do something, and even asked why they were not going to eat him. Prota says no. He wanted to see if he could attract some bigger predators with that frog. The frog was still alive, trying to escape while his soul almost came out of his body. But then something really appears among the bushes. That giant rat starts thinking about the roasted frog. Then he already wanted to eat. He moves towards the frog and bites, trying to pull him to another location, but he keeps shaking from fear when he sees something. He had seen several hooks, or rather, Prota's prey. The arm and rat even try to escape, but Prota catches him because he was trying to escape. Not even with all his strength does he succeed. Prota ends up lifting him up, and in the end, that mouse is 100% thrown to the ground with all his strength. In that case, he already had 2 more meals, so he asked Emerlinho if his method was bad, because it wasn't. They didn't have to catch another prey, and they were very happy with the food they had gotten. Prota said that this way they would get 2 prey at once, and today they were going to celebrate this victory. But Yellow and Prota saw the sky. It was an eagle that went towards the 3. In the end, the eagle ends up catching the mouse and ends up climbing upwards with all speed. Prota shouted at her not to catch his prey because that was unfair. Prota starts attacking several Kangers without stopping to see if he could at least hit that eagle, but it didn't help. The eagle simply makes a mocking face, mocking his face, and Prota is still more furious about this situation. Then the little girl starts saying that that eagle was evil and starts heading towards it. Prota even tells her to stop because she couldn't fly like an eagle, but he is simply surprised with what he had seen. He realized that she was transforming into a dragon while she said she was going after it. Prota is shocked and surprised. She really looked like her mother now. He even told Emerlinho that that was incredible. She tries to jump to fly, but she still doesn't know how, and that's why she ends up falling face down on the ground without being able to fly. PR even comments that it's the first time she's flown, so she hadn't mastered everything. After that, he asks Yellow to check if she was okay or if she was injured. She ends up transforming and starts immediately crying a lot. She said she had been hurt, and it was hurting. Silver said she was a good girl, and there was no need to cry. He starts to think that the girl's appearance after the transformation looks a little similar to a classic mountain Inong, and as she grows, she cannot keep calling her boy all the time. He should give her a name, and it was taking a while. He ends up calling her Ying Yun. He even starts to think that she wasn't very good at flying. She needed to practice. But he was a flu with a big mouth. There wasn't much for him to do. He couldn't even move on his own. How could he teach someone else to fly? Prota ends up telling her that she was already big, and she would already have her own name. That's why he said he would call her Ying Yun and asked her if it was okay with her. She said that that name was beautiful and she liked it. Proda, kind of like her vineyards, said that everything was fine. And from that day onwards, Daddy would help her practice her first flight. First, they would practice how to flap her wings and stay in the air. He asked her to climb onto his arm. After a while, she ends up climbing, and Proda ends up throwing her upwards. With her wings open, she starts gliding, and Proda told her to continue, not to be afraid. She had to keep her eyes forward. Proda ends up remembering that that scene seemed familiar. He remembers his mother teaching him how to ride a bike while she told him to hold the steering wheel firmly and not be afraid. Now he understood the difficulty his mother went through at that time, but he could never return for those days. But then he gets scared because the girl was almost falling, and he asked her to be careful. She ends up falling while Little Yellow was running towards her. The guy was shouting, asking if she was okay, if he could help her get up, and he had the snake in his mouth, warning him that he had caught a snake there while it came back to him. He asked her if she was hurt and if the snake had bitten her, but she told him not to worry because she remembered that he taught her, so she bit directly on her vital point. Proda gets very excited about it, calling Yellowy because her little one grew a lot and now she could even catch snakes alone. For a few days, the girl was already dominating the air. She said that little Ying Yun was flying more and more better. She was very graceful and agile. She was already good at it. Proda ended up warning her for Ying Yun not to go too far. It was PR to return early. But after a while, Ta looked at the sky, saying that she still hadn't come back. 5 minutes passed, and Proda commented that several minutes had already passed and asked Emerlinho to look for her because he thought she went to another area. Maybe she went to her mother's area. That would be bad. 15 minutes passed, and Proda said that so much time had passed, and she still hadn't come back. He was already worried. Maybe she went to look for her biological mother. In fact, girls grow up quickly, and they soon leave. But they end up seeing something in the sky. Proda said that it was coming back, but then he realizes that it wasn't her. It was a hawk, the same one that had appeared and stolen their food. The hawk somehow looked nervous, and it really wasn't for no reason. There was something behind him, and the one behind him was a girl. She was at full speed behind him, while Proda started laughing because he knew that little Yun wouldn't abandon him, that old father. The girl had a grudge against that hawk, and that's why she was after him. She went to settle the score. The hawk was desperate to try to get away from that girl. Proda says that his daughter is very smart. She makes the eagle slowly head towards them, and that's why now he would take advantage of this chance to play the kanjur. He starts attacking several kanjurs, hitting the eagle. His eyes widen for a moment because he had been caught by the girl, and with no escape, he ends up biting the girl's paw, who ends up letting him go. She is very angry while he was hunting. Proda ends up grabbing him and asking him to never hurt his daughter again, otherwise he would die. In the end, he ends up attacking the guy on the ground with all the strength he had, which even causes huge damage. When the dust passes, the hawk was totally defeated on the ground. Now the girl was talking happily that they had managed to hunt. Proda starts to caress her, saying that this was his daughter. She has grown up so much to hunt even alone, and he was very proud of her. He said that at that moment it was time for a meal. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Little Yun grew up a lot and even took on the appearance of a 10-year-old child, but apparently preferred the form of a dragon. She spoke that she had captured at that moment. She hunted every day alone without needing their help, so Emerlinho didn't even need to be predator bait anymore to get to Proda. He was very happy, saying that Yun was better, while Little Yellow also smiled at her. She said it was time to eat while everyone started to eat. Proda said that they finally achieved the freedom of the flesh. Raising their daughter was not in vain, no matter how difficult it was. Proda ended up giving her a piece, saying that it was hers. She said he should keep that piece for himself, but Proda said that he was already satisfied, and she was also growing, so it was for her to eat a lot. As little Ying grew, snakes and small birds would no longer be enough to satisfy her. Out of nowhere, a feline appears in front of Proda. He starts to think that this girl was trying to capture even bigger prey. Proda wonders if that was a lynx. How did she manage to catch a lynx? It was a very big prey. He even asked if she was hurt, but she told him not to worry because she was totally fine, and it was very good and easy to hunt. Then she said it was dinner time. A while passed, and another feline appeared in front of Proda. Proda wondered if it was a hyena. He asked if he had already warned her not to go after prey that big. For now, hyenas are social animals, especially cunning and very dangerous. He was even worried that she had gotten hurt in that battle, but she asked him not to worry because he taught her very well. She remembered everything, and she took advantage of the opportunity when one was alone. But Silver asked if she was hurt because she had a wound on her leg. She simply says it's a minor injury. That guy reacted very quickly, and she ended up catching him, but one of his paws ended up scratching her. Proda said that it wasn't a minor injury because she was bleeding. He begins to think that every time little Yun goes down to catch prey, if the prey is not killed instantly, she quickly flies high and drops the prey until it dies. However, the prey is sometimes not dead or seriously injured. It is possible for her to scratch or bite in the air. PR remembers his mother when she fought with him because he could not run away like that, and he could even get hurt again. When he least notices that injury, it had already healed. He said she was really a dragon, probably a legendary divine monster. She really was strong, but even so, he should teach her some home methods to ensure her safety, just like his mother taught him when he was younger. But he really wasn't a flying dragon. How could he teach her better hunting methods? He said that this was really a scary challenge if an old father is not easy. But he changed his mind and said he had an idea. He said that the safest method for an air attack is to launch a project. He ends up calling his daughter and asking her to find a nearby big stone that she can grab with her fangs, and also calls Amerlinho to use the bones he had there as a knife to draw an X in an open space. After a while, Yellow had already finished, and there was a gigantic X. Proda speaks to Yellow that when he finished drawing, he was supposed to leave the area quickly while his daughter carried that stone. He asked her to take advantage of the opportunity and was supposed to hit the stone in the direction of the floor and make a gigantic bang. But when she looked down, she realized that the mistake was very big. It was difficult, but Silver says that this was her first release, so she didn't need to worry so much about it. It was normal to make mistakes, so she asked her to try again. She needed to practice fixed targets first, and after fixed targets, she would go for moving targets. She would definitely be a sniper who hits the target every time, and she would be a godly pitcher. 15 days passed. Mina was passing by, fine, even stretching. She had just woken up, but then she looked up and noticed something scary. It was a gigantic rock heading towards her, and in the end, there wasn't even the poor thing's soul left because she was 100% correct. The girl ends up catching the hyena and flies away with her new snack. She commented that using that stone as a weapon was a great method. She said that her father was amazing for doing this. It was very effective. Plus, using this method, she no longer needed to worry about getting alert with a bunch of hyenas since they couldn't even see straight. She ends up looking to the side and notices 2 human skeletons, and she wonders what that was. But then she saw that there was a sword, and she knew what that was. She said that her father would probably like it since the bow was all tattered and old, and he always said he would like a sword, so that's why she ends up going down and said she would get it for her father. A while later, she plays the hyena in front of her father. He realized that she had landed a blow to the head that was instantly fatal to him. She also commented that she was already a divine pitcher, while Kalongo Amerlo said that that was very impressive. He realized that she was growing very quickly, and it had already been 3 months, and she was already that size. Then she ends up transforming into her human form, and he commented that in her human form, she was already a tall, beautiful, and charming young woman. She told her father that she already had come back, and she said that the method he had taught her was very effective. Proda spoke for her to be kind because she would break him, and he was already old. Silver starts to think that it wasn't bad to be hugged by a girl like that. He has never been so close to a girl before. But then he touches himself because he was her father. He said he was crazy thinking about these things. He started fighting with her, explaining that she was a young girl, and she wasn't supposed to hug any other man, not even him. She wonders why she can't hug men. Proda says simply because as daughters grow up, they begin to avoid their fathers, and as children grow up, they start to avoid their mothers. But that girl starts crying, saying she didn't do anything wrong, and he was so fierce like that. She even brought him a gift just to make him happy. Proda feels guilty and starts telling her not to cry. He just wanted to be a little rough with her. He just wanted to protect her, and that's what a father does. He changed the subject and asked what gift she wanted to give him. She explains that it was a great sword, and she wanted to surprise him, so she hid it in the bush for a while. She asks if he would like it. Proda said that of course he would like it as long as it was a gift from her dear daughter. But he tries to take it. He said that it was quite heavy, and he wanted to see what kind of heavy sword it was. He starts to hold the sword, even though it was shaking because its branches weren't that strong. So he starts saying that it looked cool, and he even comments that that sword looked like one of those humans who were gone. Then she asked if there was anything else where she had found it. She explained that there were 2 human skeletons near the mountain, and the sword was piled on the skeletons. She even said that in addition to the sword, there was a small shovel, 2 backpacks, and a dagger. She asked if he wanted her to go back there to get the other things. Silver said she could bring the dagger and that shovel. For the rest, they wouldn't need anything. Then the girl said that she would definitely bring them, and she would bring them the next day when she went hunting. Proda starts thinking about those 2 who stole the dragon's egg. He starts thinking that he had practically killed them himself. But if he didn't do that, it wouldn't just be dangerous for him. They would steal the dragon's egg. Then one would also be in danger. They would possibly make a boiled egg, or even after the outbreak, being practically enslaved by humans. Then he was sure that his action wasn't wrong. If he had to choose again, he would still do the same thing. He ends up dropping the sword and comments that it was very heavy. He was already panting after just trying a few blows. Even using both vines, holding the sword was difficult. He also commented that last time, just pulling the human's leg was a very dangerous operation because he almost broke his vines in addition to being almost ripped from the ground. He has to leave his vines stronger, and he should be able to swing a sword just using 1 scallop instead of 2. After a while, Proda was training while Ying-yun asked if he wasn't going to eat. Proda said that the 2 could eat because he would train. He had to get stronger. After that, he ends up hitting an animal that ends up cutting off its head. He was actually much stronger. He cut it into 2 pieces in just 1 blow. Then Ying-yun said that her father was very incredible, while the little Kalanguinho held 2 cheering branches, talking that the older brother was very powerful. He said that after several evolution updates, now he can easily hold that sword with one of its 4 vines. Then PR spoke that it was already meal time, and he started to cut that animal. He commented that when his sword was not in use, he hit her, and that would be his triumph because if a human or other big enemy appears, he could simply catch him off guard and kill him. Talking about the bearded man, he ends up appearing. He congratulates the host because he got a box, and again it took 10,000 evolution points to open the box. There were several boxes accumulated, and he ends up calling Amerlinho and Ying-yun to go there in front of him. Each of them would choose the number from 1 to 5 out loud. Then Ying-yun commented that every time after the meal, her father asked the metrics that they talked about, and he always seemed very excited or disappointed depending on the result. But she talked that it didn't matter as long as he was happy. She says she would choose 5 while Kalango said 2. He catches the bearded man's attention, saying it was box 2 and 5. It was just opening the chest. C ends up opening it, and the system congratulates the host because he unlocked another gene. It was rank B, and it was Azuri. The system asked if he would agree to merge that new function with him. He is not at all surprised by this new gene. The difference from one to the other is that in a few days, this one ends up ruining it and turning yellow. But the difference is that it could accumulate much faster than the other. That's why he would choose to strengthen and use it, boosting his bullets. He starts to say that he would strengthen him for the blue kanjur. Then the chest too starts to open. The system congratulates Prota. He had just won a gene of rank C called Grape, and she asks if he would want the fusion. That gene would nothing more than make him get a fruit, and it was one of the fruits of the highest nutritional value in the world. He wonders what would help this bearded man. He explains that it would mean that it would bloom and bear some fruit. After the fusion, the host could spend a certain amount of evolution points to produce grapes. He said that this also required a tip of evolution. What would be the use of reproducing grapes? The bearded man said it was for eating, of course, like fruit after a meal. He commented that eating ripe fruit could improve your beauty and restore the humidity. The fruits have a healing and regenerative effect, and it was great. PR starts saying that this was interesting. He could heal his teammates and fill them with fruit, and that was very interesting. The guy said he would want the fusion, and the bearded man already ends up using his wand. The guy looks at him and said that nothing has changed, and no fruit or anything has appeared. He asks the bearded man how he does it to bloom and bear fruit. She said that just as he stored food in his roots, he was to imagine blooming and bearing fruit in his mind. He begins to think that he wanted fruit to blossom and begins to imagine. Then a giant screen appears in front of him, saying that it was minus 5,000 points. It said that 5,000 points was a lot and asked why she wasn't going to rob someone else. The bearded man explained that at that moment, he only had the option of grapes, and when he can produce other fruits in the future, other corresponding options would appear. He explains that according to what the fruit offered, it is a fair price as it saves lives. Then Prota ends up agreeing that there really was no way to disagree. He said that he wanted to produce fruits, and the grape leaves were already growing. He starts to look in his head, and it was actually growing at a frightening rate. It was already cute and green, and really, out of nowhere, it bore fruit. After that, Prota said the grapes were ready so quickly. It was as if they had magic. Even his daughter is surprised to see that plant that she had never seen before, but he realizes that it was very heavy. He couldn't even lift his head. He said that anyway, it was time to taste that grape, and he ends up eating one. He said it was sweet and sour and had a great taste. He called Yellow and his daughter. They could also try it. They both started eating while his daughter said that it was very good. It was delicious. Silver asked her how she felt after eating that. Emerlinho said he didn't feel anything special or different. Silver starts to think it's because no one got hurt. Maybe it's just a normal fruit. It can be good. But anyway, that fruit was very expensive, and he could produce orange apples, dragon fruit, or anything else in the future. But then he starts thinking, bro, if he produces other bigger fruits, his neck would break. After a while, his daughter is already bringing new game, while Prota said that she had come back quickly. But she seems desperate, saying that she had seen 5 humans on the mountain. But then Prota changes his face, and he turns away. He asks what she means by humans and wanted to know if she was sure. She said she was absolutely sure, as they had even made tents. Furthermore, they also found 2 previous skeletons and buried one grave for them. Prota said that they are probably companions of these 2 people who died. He asked Eun if they had seen her, and she said they probably hadn't because she was quite high off the ground. He asked her not to go to the mountains to hunt in the future. She was to stay in that area. Those people were very dangerous, and she ends up saying that she understood. Prota said that now it was time to eat. You need to be full to have energy. After that, Prota said he was feeling a little tired. He was hungry that day. He had to tell the bearded man to quickly open all the treasure chests. But then she comes to Prota fighting with the bearded man. She wonders what was wrong with her father because he was so upset suddenly and nervous. Proto asked if the system was playing games with him. He had lost everything and only gained evolution points. That was too much. Silver starts to think that the enemy appeared again. He should become as strong as possible quickly without wasting time. But now he would need the ability to self-defense and would also need to defend Ying-Yun. He could not let anything bad happen. A few days passed with her, and Aeon said that almost no prey was left in that area. Also, Proto wouldn't let her go to the mountain again. Other humans end up seeing her flying, talking, which was probably a baby dragon. One of the humans said that they would prosper again. One of them ends up holding a crossbow, saying that he was supposed to catch it. An arrow ends up being shot, and the arrow unfortunately hits Ying-Yun, who wasn't anywhere. It was on her wing. When she realizes, she sees that they were humans, and she wonders if they had already arrived there. But 2 more arrows ended up appearing, and both of them hit her wing again. She said that the humans were really there. She needed to run to tell her father. The humans who were there said that she had a damaged wing, so she wouldn't be able to fly very far. One of the old men said that she was flying to the south, so he just had to follow her. He asked him to get an anti-dragon cannon. He also said that although it was just one puppy, they needed to be fully prepared. Then Ying-Yun ends up arriving, and Proto is already aware of what had happened. He asks who had shot her. She, with a sad face, said it was humans. They appeared nearby, and they ambushed her. Proto is very surprised and nervous about the humans who had appeared there. He asked if she had gone hunting at that camp he had forbidden, but she said she promised she hadn't gone there. She said 3 people showed up right there, and they ambushed her, hiding in the bushes. Then Proto started taking out the arrow that was in her wing, and he had a lot of anger, telling her to at least try to handle that because he would help her. He manages to remove the arrow, breaking it in half, and told her to hold on a little because he was going to make the grape, and with it, he was going to help her heal. Then he puts the grape in her mouth, telling her to eat everything. She realized that it was really starting to heal, and the effect of that grape was very good. He was still unsure if it was hurting, but she said it didn't even compare anymore to what she was feeling and ends up thanking him. Then the little Kalanguinho starts to come running, saying that 3 humans were heading there, approaching quickly. Silver was just watching the situation. He had to prepare himself. Deep down, he saw that there really were 3 humans, and he ends up telling his daughter to quickly transform into human form and hide with Yellow in the bushes and very far from there. They really do this, and that bald guy said that the dragon must be there. He must not have flown far with a bad wing. He asked the 2 to look in all the bushes because he had to be there. Proto was thinking in his thoughts who those 3 were who shot his daughter, and he was furious. One of the guys said there was some rare plant there. He said that that plant was very strange. He had never seen one of that type, and he wanted to know that this kind of strange plant was actually a little disgusting. But the old man said he didn't understand it, let alone strange. He saw that it is something more rare and precious. Silver spoke in his thoughts that the strange thing there was him, and he was disgusting too. He starts thinking for that guy to leave right there. But one of them ended up seeing that there was blood there, and he said that it wasn't dry yet, so the dragon should have landed there. He commented that the remaining blood disappeared there. Proto begins to think that he was so busy treating his daughter's wound that he forgot to take care of the bloodstain. One of them held a shovel and said that this strange plant must have majestic effects. He was even looking forward to studying it and maybe even finding treasure. The guy next to him said he decided whether to take that plant or not. Silver couldn't do much. He was completely being dug up by that father. But Prota's daughter ends up shouting at the guy to stop doing that. She said he was very bad at trying to hurt his father. Silver starts to think that this was really bad because his daughter was nervous. Then the old man sees why there was a girl there. He has a lot of doubts. The girl asks them to get out of there, but then they notice the dragon horn that was on her forehead. They said she was a dragon. They start to smile with some sinister guys, saying it was true. The dragon changed shape, and they were very lucky. The girl got very afraid of the looks of those guys, and they end up moving forward to try to catch her. But Proto saves her at the last moment with her thorns. The chubby guy said that it hurt a lot, and he wondered where that had come from. Proto tells his girl so she wouldn't worry about him because he took care of everything, and she was supposed to fly out of there quickly. She tries until she said that she wouldn't do that, but Proto ignores her and says that he could deal with them, and she had to leave quickly. She ends up transforming and ends up flying away, while that chubby said that the dragon was escaping, and they needed to do something because it would fly and escape. That guy ends up shooting with his crossbow, but he ends up missing. He starts shooting several more without stopping. The chubby guy said that it was very strange because she wasn't flying like last time, knowing that they were shooting at her. She was still there. It was very strange that she should have run away already. Then the old man starts talking. He explains that she was just protecting that plant and seemed to have called this plant father. She heard that precious plants, like some spiritual plants, are guarded by beasts. The chubby guy's eye even appears money. He asked if the old man was saying that that plant was a spiritual plant. A spiritual plant that a dragon changes shape. This time he would get rich. The old man starts to grab Proto to try to get him out, while Proto was thinking that it hurt a lot. He starts cursing that old man every name. The old man told that little dragon that if she didn't come back there on the ground, she would rip her father in quotes by the roots, but the girl ends up destabilizing and goes furious, telling them to leave her father, and the old man starts calling her a fool while holding the Proto. They start to prepare to shoot her, but the old man tells them to wait until she gets close, and then he aims at the wings. It's not to take her until she dies, but the guy told the old man not to worry, he had everything under control. Para was furious, thinking that those guys were trying to threaten his daughter, and he said that since it had come to that point, it was not to blame him if he killed someone. His vineyards would end, leaving the ground, and he said he would give everything he had to save his daughter, even if it meant his death. The girl screamed that she would save her father, but the guy holding his crossbow said there was a 90% chance of him knocking her down. He ends up realizing that there were thorns wrapping around her arm. He wonders what that was, from where it came, he didn't know. He was shaking and pulling him like he was a mannequin, so much so that he can do it. That guy was talking to the old man while the old man was asking him what he was doing. The silver man managed to get that guy to shoot the old man, and the guy goes into despair until he makes him shoot his own boss. The chubby guy starts to ask him what he was doing because he just ended their plan. The guy starts looking at his hands with many doubts about how he could, just as this vineyard controlled him. Then the vines begin to poke him behind him. When he looks, he ends up being hanged, and the chubby guy is in shock, just seeing the situation while his colleague is hanged by Proto. Proto knocks him down and still continues to hang him with as much hatred as he had. He said that nothing escapes his vines if he arrests you, and she ends up crushing you to death. While that guy asked who was talking, he didn't understand anything else. The Proto ends up taking the arrow and saying that he suddenly thought of a way to give a taste of his own medicine. That guy asked who he was, and he said he was the guy who was going to kill him after he had shot his daughter and even stained her with blood. He said that now he had to return to where he came from and ends up taking the arrow out of his chest. He starts strangling the guy, saying he used to hurt his daughter a lot. Now he deserves the punishment he received. The chubby guy is very scared with the Proto's shadow on top of him. He said that plant was very strange, how that plant killed his boss and the other, how a simple plant could kill so many people. The Proto is holding that arrow, asking the fat guy if he wouldn't avenge his own comrades. This doesn't exist, as the plant said, it was impossible, it could only be an illusion. Then the chubby one recovers and says that really that was just an illusion, and now he was just going to finish off that strange flower. But before he hit Proto, his attack is stopped by a sword out of nowhere. He wonders if a plant was able to wield a sword. It didn't exist. He started saying it was just an illusion and begins to make several attacks on Prota's sword. But moments later, someone arrives calling that guy a bad man and said he wouldn't hurt her father. She starts to lift him up while he was shouting to let him go. Two unknown men ended up seeing that the chubby guy was being taken by the dragon, and they were also carrying the anti-dragon cannon. They commented that this was a great opportunity to shoot the dragon while he was in the air. They ended up lighting the candle to shoot and said they would hit him. They end up screaming fire while a big golden ball ends up flying through the sky. In that moment, a large ball of fire ends up heading towards the girl. The silver one even asked her to try to leave from there and move quickly, but there really wouldn't be time. She ends up letting go of the chubby guy to kind of be a shield. The ball hits the guy with everything and just causes a huge explosion that even the girl gets hit by. The silver guy saw her fall slowly on the ground, and a blonde guy said that Beast used the fat guy as a shield, while the other said they were going to avenge that guy and would have to see if the chubby guy at least survived. But probably not. They begin to advance, pushing the anti-dragon cannon. The girl was on the ground, totally toast and injured. She said that it hurt the Prota and the Kalanguinho a lot. He was very worried, asking if she was okay. The Prota starts making that grape again while the scoundrel was helping her. He was really fed up of those humans and ends up giving her that grape to eat because that way she would regenerate. While she ate one, Prota produced one more. In the end, he ended up giving it to her, saying that it would cure her. He ends up asking if she would be able to fly after being cured because she had to get out of there and he would take care of the rest. But she said no, she wouldn't leave without him. He says they want to capture her, and he was just a plant. He would win their distraction. He would be able to take care of them. The girl commented that she was very afraid that he would end up dying. That old man, after that, could even be used as a medicinal plant or something. Those guys continued loading that cannon while the girl said they were coming. Those two stay in shock after seeing the result of that terrible battle. They discovered that their boss was totally dead on the ground. In addition to others, they also compare, and they wonder how those two killed so many humans like that. But the other, in a cold sweat, told him not to worry. Apparently, it was just a scared dragon, and she couldn't fly either. So she was totally hurt. One of them ended up holding a firearm and said that now they were going to capture her. Definitely, the silver starts screaming for the girl to fly immediately, even though she didn't want to leave him there. He said that she had to listen. She shouldn't worry because he wouldn't die there. So she started to fly, even though she was almost crying. The blonde realized that she was flying, and she was going to run away, so he ended up taking out his gun and shooting her. He commented that she wasn't going to run away from there. That bullet he had shot at her ended up opening and forming a capture net that ends up hitting the girl. She consequently falls to the ground with that net holding her. He tells her not to be afraid. She had to try to move, and he would help her. Both guys start moving towards her because now they would get rich, right? Silver starts trying to cut her out of that net, but it wasn't working very well with the sword. He said that it was very resistant, and he tried asking the girl to turn into a human again so she would have a better chance of escaping. The creeper begins to position himself behind a rock holding a sharp thorn. He said that now he would create a trap and spoke with his red eyes, telling his daughter to calm down. He said that they had a very good plan, and for now, she was supposed to transform into a human again. That way, she would break that net, and then she would transform back into a dragon to attack one of those men, and they would easily be able to defeat them. They were running towards them, but the little Kalanguinho took advantage and positioned that sharp thorn. Consequently, the guy ends up stepping on it, and that thorn goes through his foot. Obviously, he feels a lot of pain and said that he had stepped on a bone or something. His companion said that he was very careless, so he said she shouldn't worry because now they would get her out of there. When she turns into a human, the net ends up breaking, and those guys get very surprised. where the dragon was, she simply appeared on top of him with her claws and quickly transforms into a dragon. The guy is very scared, saying that she could transform. She ends up throwing him on the ground and even tries to bite his head, but he avoids it and asks his friend to help him. That guy was holding a gun and said that now that beast would die. But when he attacks, another sword appears, blocking the attack. He asks himself what this is. That was our protagonist. He was holding his sword again, and that guy had a lot of questions like, why is a plant holding a sword? It didn't make sense. Prota's daughter ends up catching that guy and lifting him to the heavens while the blonde gets desperate in the place. Prota asks where he was looking during a fight and then ends up making a cut in the guy's arm, seriously injured. He says a plant was talking. He ends up picking up his sword again and said that plant must only be a demon, and that's why he would die. They begin to exchange several sword blows. Prota said it was a great name, demonic plant. The blonde was holding a small dagger that ends up throwing that blade towards the plant, which in this case was Prota. Prota said that guy had no honor using a hidden blade like that, but he can easily block the blade that comes spinning through the air. Now, he was furious because the guy had no honor. Prota was holding two blades while the guy stood in shock and with fear. Prota spoke to now that guy opened his eyes because he could clearly see that he was a plant that held swords with vines. He said he better open his eyes because it wasn't two vines, there were four. The third vine appeared behind the guy, holding the beast's eye. The guy marvels at how the plant was able to use a crossbow. He said that now was the time for him to prove it. The arrow ends up hitting the guy's head and gives a headshot, and the other one who was flying in the heavens, the girl, ends up throwing him from above. He ends up falling to the ground too, and consequently dying. She ends up surprised to have won the fight against that guy, and the little creep soon comes out of the woods shouting that he had won. He said that Prota was very incredible. In fact, the girl was also very majestic. Prota said that she was really close, but they managed to win this battle. He said that at that moment, they had to clean the battlefield because the smell of blood would attract other carnivores. The girl asks if they wouldn't eat those bad guys, but the guy said that not eating those guys was horrible and wouldn't work. They better throw them away and look for other food. The girl said that then she understood she couldn't eat them, and it was a shame. But Prota freezes, and he said that something very bad happened. The body of that old man had simply disappeared out of nowhere, and in the background only a sinister laugh appears. Our Prota said that guy faked his death. At that moment, he was holding that cannon. He said that now they both would die, calling them monsters, and ends up turning on the cannon. Prota didn't know what to do and ends up telling Yellow and his daughter to get out of there. She ends up flying with Yellow, and Prota stays there while they are both very sad and don't know what to do. That ball goes towards Prota. He even tries to throw that net that was holding his daughter against the ball that was coming towards her. But it doesn't help because the ball pierces that net easily. Paris said that at that distance, he would explode and ends up playing all his vines towards the ball to try to stop it. It actually works, ends up causing the explosion. But the explosion was so big that he can't get away with it. He ends up being burned. Amarlinho and his daughter get nervous, thinking that Prota had probably died, and he really was he was just dust on the floor. The girl starts to cry and really hated that guy, while the old man screamed that he had finally killed that monster evil. The girl had pure hatred in her eyes heading towards that old man, and obviously, he wasn't going to give in. He stops a dragon and ends up running into the forest, because then the dragon would lose sight of him. The girl looks at the anti-dragon cannon and ends up taking all that ammunition there and starts hunting that guy in the forest. While he was hiding behind a tree, he said that the forest was quite dense, and he probably had nowhere to run, so he would stay under some tree, and he would be safe. But he looked up in amazement, and there were several bombs heading towards him. He really didn't know what to do, and probably the dragon would kill him right there. A gigantic explosion happens throughout the forest, and time passes. Proto was on the floor while the girl went there crying, saying that she tried everything and asked Proto to wake up. Even the Kalanguinho was crying because he thought that Proto had died. But then Proto's triumph ends up activating, and it was those roots that stored food that in case of emergency regenerate. A strong green light ends up appearing, and the girl is surprised by what she had seen. The leaves start to regenerate, but not the entire leaves, and then finally, he ends up waking up, saying that now he had returned. He said that his ability was incredible because now he was brand new. But he really said that he almost visited Jesus. The girl is very happy, saying that she was very happy that he is alive, and hugs him while Kalongo also hugs her. He said he really thought she would never see him again, and she said it was probably her fault for having attracted those guys there. But Silver told her not to cry because he was totally fine. He said that it was nothing. They were really just hunters who went after her. But he was talking about the explosion he had just now. He asked what happened to that old man. She said that with a very angry face he had after hurting Proto, he ended up escaping, but she managed to reach him and ended up practically bombing him. Silver looked at that explosion and the forest in fire and said that that was sinister. Those bombs from the anti-dragon cannon were really strong. He even ends up saying that the girl was very interesting, because in the emergency she thought about using the bombs. This was practically an air attack, and it was very powerful, but he asked her to clean everything up quickly because those bodies would attract carnivores, and that would be bad for them. He also told her to observe the surface from there to ensure that there were no other humans. Otherwise, it would only be work for both of them. If she left those bodies, it would attract other humans too. She ends up saying that she understood, and Proto even starts to think that he killed 2 out of 5 people. He said that after a while, adventurers would probably send more people to take a look at the place since 5 people disappeared there. That way, they would never have peace, so it was quite dangerous. He had to find a way to get out of there. He wonders if it would be good if he runs away with his roots. He starts looking at the anti-dragon cannon, wondering what he would do with a giant metal thing. Besides, he didn't have any more ammunition either. But then he has a shiny idea and said that he was finally a genius. He could put himself in that cannon as if it were a potted plant, and it would be useful since he could move around. Furthermore, it was a safe place for his roots since it was made of metal. There was no way anyone could break that. He ended up remembering his mother. He regretted not having learned or knowing how to transplant plants between pots or vases. He said that once he even killed a plant, his mother fought with him a lot. He was very angry. He was really worried about trying to do this and accidentally dying. His daughter ends up coming back and saying that all the bodies had already been discarded, and then there would be no more carnivores around. The girl noticed that the Proto was not happy and asked why he was so sad since they had defeated 5 enemies. He was supposed to be happy. At least they were alive to explain that 5 people were killed in that area, and the adventurers would go after them. If they go after them, they would investigate that area, and they would end up finding them. So it was quite dangerous. Then the girl asks what they would do. So the Silver said, looking at the sky, that they would have to get out of there. They would have to find another safer place. If they didn't leave, they would soon find them, and it was dangerous. But the girl said there was no way because he was a plant. There was no way for him to get out of the ground. Furthermore, he also didn't have any legs or anything like that. Proto said he had an idea. He called the girl and asked her to remove all that wood from that cart. She ended up going in the direction and said that her father asked him to do this. She wonders if he would launch himself in the cannon. She said that if that was the plan, it wasn't very good. Proto starts saying that he wouldn't use himself as a projectile. He said that first, she should do what he ordered. She starts to raise that cannon, but she realizes that she really couldn't. Proto was quite heavy, so he tells her to climb to the sky with that cart and throw it on the floor because then it would be the same thing. She can actually do it with a lot of effort and ends up throwing it on the ground. Then she takes it towards Proto and asks what they were going to do next. Proto raises his swords and other things and said that now they were going to implant him in that cart in that cannon. He starts to go crazy, digging the ground, saying that now he would be free. He makes a big hole. He actually puts the cannon in that hole in the ground and said that now it was almost ready. Now he just had to do it himself, implanting there. He said he needed help to dig his roots and get him in there, but they had to be careful because this was quite dangerous. The girl is in shock and wonders what he was doing, because if he was taken away from there, he would die. She said she wouldn't do that because the chance of him living was quite low. He commented that he had to do this. Besides, he was still young. His life hadn't even practically started. He explains that plants can move into a type of pot. They could still live, and that's what he wanted to try too. He just needed fertilizer too, and land, and so the nutrients would be the same as if it were on the ground. Plus, they would also be able to move to other places. This was also good, and his daughter also noticed this and said that that was exactly what he could do, move to other locations. Now they had to go to work. They didn't have much time to waste. They had to take their roots out of the ground. After a while, they started to dig, and Proto started saying to the little yellow one that he was hurting his roots. He even said that his daughter was also breaking his roots and asked if the two wanted to kill him in the end or maybe torture him. After a while, Proto uses his vines to get up, and he said that he was finally free. The girl was surprised that she could see her roots there, and it was spectacular. It was strange. She had never seen it before. Even Amerlinho was surprised and stopped. He asks why he was naked. That was scary. Proto tells them both to stop messing around because now he had to get into that new vase, which in this case was the cannon. The girl said it was okay. She would go to do just that. She starts to put dirt inside and asks if that would be enough because maybe she was already good. Proto said to fill it with dirt and then put it in there. After she tried to put it in, he said it was right. His roots were enjoying that, and after the girl let go of him, he ends up going to the bottom. He looks up and only saw a tunnel there, practically. Silver commented to the girl that she put very little soil, and that's why it was so deep. The girl even got a little worried about Proto. She commented that the cannon was bigger than she imagined, and that's why she would try to get him out again. But he said there was no need to try to get him out. He did it alone. He raises his vines and slowly begins to climb. He asked for a hand there too because, right, the animal is not made of iron. She said that it was almost perfect that way, and you just had to add more dirt there to make it stay at a good level. Proto said it was almost there. She started to put more dirt in there, and Proto asked for her to put sand practically up to the nozzle of that cannon. After a while, he said that the transplant was a success. Now he could move to almost all locations. Hallelujah. He said that it really was simple, maybe because he wasn't a normal plant. Then he ends up remembering, saying it was true, he had to put water there, otherwise he would end up dying, right? He calls his daughter and says that now that he was there, they needed to go to those dead bodies and look for some tools they left behind, like pots and equipment. She said yes, she would go at that moment, and then she ends up going while Silver said that the plan was going well. And now he just had to have water so he could stay alive there. He needed plenty of water, and if she found some pots of water, it would be good. After a while, she comes back with some pots of water, and she asked if that was it. Proto got very excited and said that was it. That tool would help him a lot and said that she just had to put some water in there. But for that to happen, there had to be water there, and that was why she was going to get it. She ends up turning into a dragon and said that now she would go there to fill it up, and it ends up flying away. The little yellow guy arrives with a little bit of water, saying he brought some to put in there for now. Proto says he didn't need it anymore, just because he had water at the time, he would probably use it. He puts water on his foot, and then as there was a hole in the cannon, Silver asked Amerlinho if there was any water coming out somewhere, but Amerlinho said that there wasn't. The girl was filling that pot with water in those bottles and said that that would probably be enough. After a while, she added the water, But unfortunately, it starts to leak down there, and even the yellow one gets scared, saying that water was coming out everywhere. Proto gets desperate, asking why he didn't say it before. It was for them to try to stop this. Otherwise, they would lose all the water. Para starts to comment that suddenly it seems like he went from a giant house to a room that only had one bed, and it was a little cramped, and he couldn't move right. He said that now that there was sand there and everything he needed, he would observe it for a few more days. If anything, his daughter puts him back on the floor again. He commented that all the preparation would have to be done because if humans appeared, they would leave immediately. He also said that the cart was broken, so there was no way to push him. Maybe he would fly with his daughter. It would be easier. Would she be able to handle his weight? He said he would kind of make a backpack around him so he could carry things and not disturb her daughter carrying other things. She said that first would be those basic equipment that he needed and could not abandon, especially the sword, crossbow, etc. Furthermore, once he leaves there, who would guarantee the dangers he could face? He ends up asking the girl to get all the items from those bad guys. He would see everything before they left. After a while, he sees that it was too much. He said that the sword was enough. There were some other equipment such as a crossbow he also needed to carry. In addition to the bow, he could use a type of belt to hold those items around him. He also told his daughter that he was going to choose some weapons, so it was just her attaching it to the cannon. After a while, everything was fine. The sword was there, the bow was there too, and the crossbow. He raised his sword and said he could easily pull it out if he needed to. Now he was kind of a warrior there with armor. Proto even commented that some monsters from a certain game were appearing that he couldn't talk about. Then her daughter ends up appearing, and her belly growls with hunger. She asks if Proto was hungry because she had a lot, and she wanted to find some food. Proto said that after that big fight, it was obvious that he was also a little hungry. He had to replenish the energy he had spent, but he said no. He wouldn't leave for now, and she could hunt as she probably didn't have other humans anyway there. She said that she understood and ends up transforming into a dragon. She suddenly ends up flying, and Proto is thinking about the place he had to eat. Open boxes and accumulate some evolution points. He had to stay stronger in any way for any enemy that appears in the future. Furthermore, he said that he used all 4 vines to weave that backpack, so he had to hurry and grow the 5th thorny vine to help him in emergencies on the trip. He had also used up his energy reserves at that time. He was hit by the cannonball. In that case, he needed to regenerate, so he had no more reserves. That's why he needed to put more reserves in the roots in case of emergency again. He said the road would be long, so they needed to be fully prepared. He ends up remembering his mother. She put a snack in his backpack, saying that if he got hungry, he would just eat there because the road was long, and he had to be prepared for everything. He ends up remembering and thinking about his mother's occupation. He really understood everything she had said. Then the girl ends up saying that she had returned to Proto. Proto said that it was great then, and he had already cut the meat. Proto asked for 3 pieces of meat for him to place on his roots for emergency stock. After he puts the meat there on the earth, his roots start to pull that meat, and after a while, it starts to grow a root layer. Proto said it was really tight, but there was no way, he needed it. Ava and Proto call the bearded man, telling him to open the boxes one by one in order. He ends up saying he would. When he opens 5, only 20,000 evolution points appear, and Proto gets furious because nothing good came. But the bearded man explains to Proto that evolution points are the real deal and asks the young master what would be better than evolution points. When he opens chest 6, the system appears congratulating Proto. He got a B rank item and was a plant genius. A window appears blue from the giant system, saying that it was a fusion piece, and it was a tree. The trunk was resistant, like very powerful wood, ideal for storing water. In rainy seasons, the trunk absorbed a large amount of water, storing it in the trunk, forming a sufficient water source for days in the drought. Proto is impressed by this. Proda asks if that tree isn't where the yellow goes to get water. He said this was great. It was exactly what he needed. But it was because there are two parts of fusion. The trunk is just one. It wouldn't have to be the trunk and the root. Wouldn't it be the root that stored the water? He was quite confused. The bearded man explains that the reason is because he can choose first his beauty and asked if he would like a thick trunk. There, he said no, absolutely not. He would look very ugly, a plant with a thick trunk. It was strange. He said that in this case, it would be better to merge in Sa. Then the bearded man said that everything was fine. He would merge, and it starts there. After he completed the question, how did he store that water because he needed it? He asks if he would also need to get water first because it's kind of obvious. The bearded man said yes, he would just throw water there, and it had to be accumulated. It was simple. Proda told his daughter that he would need help, so she could get water for him. She ended up turning into a dragon and starts looking for water with those two pots. After a while, she threw water there, and he realized that it was really being accumulated in its root. There was a whole blue root just made of water, but he said it was very compressed, it was tight. It was almost difficult for him to breathe. After a while, the silver one called the little yellow one. He told his daughter that the day for them to leave was also coming. 2 days later, he commented that 2 days had already passed and no human had appeared there, which was better that way. The girl ends up taking him off the ground, and Silver asks his daughter if everything was okay since he was using 2 vines to grab her arm like a backpack. She said everything was fine. Emerlinho was on Proda's side, and he commented to Emerlinho that they were about to take off. He told him to stay on the side of the cannon and use one of his vines to seal the cannon so he wouldn't fall from the sky. Yellow thanked Proda and PR for his help. He was quite excited, thinking that after 2 days, he was finally ready to leave Delhi since his vineyards were totally healthy. His daughter ends up asking in which direction she could fly. He started thinking because people apparently came from the southeast, so they could just go west. He also had a map of the human items, which would help a lot. The girl didn't know where to fly or the direction of the east, but Proda said he knew because he was a great young man from the eastern nation. He told her to listen to him and fly to the east. She starts to fly while holding the strings of the cannon. Soon, he realized that around them, it was just desert. He hoped that everything would go right, and nothing should happen since his girl was a dragon. He even commented that flying was very good. The air hit him in the face, and it was very refreshing. He then asked Yellow how he was feeling, and if everything was okay. When he realized it, little Yellow was almost vomiting and passed out. Apparently, he was very afraid of heights. The girl ended up looking at something scary. She explained that there were humans below and many camels. There were many humans, and Proda started to think that there were currently about a dozen men. Proda tells them to get out of there quickly and fly as far away as possible to avoid humans. The girl asked Proda if those guys were in the same group as those bad men. Proda said probably not since they were from other groups and directions, but they did not rule out this option. He commented about the camels, finding it quite impressive. One of the boys ended up seeing a dragon flying in the sky and warned his boss, asking what they were going to do. The boss commented that the dragon seemed to have noticed them and suddenly flew in another direction, probably wanting to get out of their reach. He mentioned that with their number, it was normal for a dragon to notice them, but he realized that the dragon had something on its back. He wondered if the dragon was carrying a flower. The boy said that the dragon really was a rare dragon, but the boss said to ignore it as they had another mission and didn't have the equipment to catch a dragon even if they wanted to. They couldn't hit that dragon, and the boy accepted reality. The scene shifts to Proda, who warned that they had been flying for 4 hours, so they had to find a place to rest. The girl contradicted him, saying she wasn't tired and didn't need to rest, but Proda insisted, saying she had to rest because the iron he was in was quite heavy. She needed her energy to be 100% restored, and they would rest in a safe place before leaving. He commented that there were some ruins below them, and they just had to go there to be fine. The girl ends up putting Proda in a corner, and Silver was very happy as the Kalanguinho got off him. They were going to rest now. He said he was going to look for food, some animal that was there, and Silver didn't ask if she was tired. She had to rest for a few minutes. A few minutes later, an animal appears, and Proda wonders if that was a desert rat. It was quite interesting, even bigger than he imagined. He asked them not to move because they would alert the others. The mouse starts looking at Proda and smelling him. Proda wonders why it was looking at him, thinking it was after the water the plants had since it was a desert. Proda realized that the mouse was trying to get in from below, so he ends up holding the mouse with his vines, completely immobilizing it. He asks the mouse if it thought it was so smart, trying to get at least the liquid from a plant. He told his daughter that she flew all that way, and that's why the little animal was supposed to fill her stomach, but she refused, saying it was too small and not enough to fill her. She would hunt later. Silver said that was fine. He would give it to the little yellow one. Suddenly, 3 more mice appeared, and Silver said that more food had arrived for them. More than 1 hour later, a war of rats appeared. There were many soldiers, an army. He said it was very strange. The rats simply passed by them, ignoring them. They realized the rats were running away from a strange kind of wolf. The guy said that the wolf wasn't normal. It was collapsing and probably had some type of virus. The wolf advanced on them, while the girl simply patted the wolf, throwing it back. She realized it was still standing, which was very strange. Proda hit the wolf, saying it shouldn't exist. Even after the blow, the wolf was still normal. Silver was surprised, saying it was probably a zombie wolf. The wolf advanced towards him with its claws, but Proda said it wouldn't be able to touch him because he was a warrior. The wolf's head was split in half with Proda's blow, but it was still biting and alive. Proda decided to put an end to that monster by sticking his sword in its brain. The little soul came out of the animal. The girl asked Proda what that monster was, as it was still alive with its head cut off. Proda said he had never seen this before. It was definitely a desert wolf. Now at least it was dead, but the girl didn't feel safe and asked what they would do if they were attacked again. Proda said he didn't know if they would be attacked. He commented that this world was strange, with talking plants, highly intelligent guardians, mystical dragons, clothed human adventurers, heroes, and now zombies. He said it was really strange, wondering if a wolf would turn into a zombie. He speculated that there might be a virus or someone infected the wolf or conducted a macabre experiment. He wondered if the wolf was created artificially, possibly by a strange mage or psychopath doing dubious experiments, or maybe it was some necromancy. The little Kalanguinho asked Proda if he could eat that, but Proda was desperate, saying for the love of God, it wasn't supposed to touch that thing. It was a strange animal and a living dead. Proda also commented that the animal could have a virus and they should keep their distance from it. They had already rested a lot, so it was better to leave and catch their prey on the way. The girl said she understood. After a while, they saw an animal that looked like an emu running very fast. Proda said that if she didn't run enough, they would catch her. He ended up shooting an arrow at the poor thing, hitting it several times. The last arrow hit her head, and she finally ended up resting in the country. The girl said that Proda was spectacular because he hit it even from afar, and now they could rest and eat that desert animal. Proda asked the 2 of them to dig a hole and put it there. They started digging the hole to put Proda. They commented that there were a lot of ruins and abandoned houses, probably a lost village. Proda said it was time for food, and they should eat well and rest a lot. Proda commented that the animal was quite big and delicious. He thought that because it was a desert animal, the meat would probably be tough. The girl asked what he meant by the meat being tough. Proda explained that the meat had no humidity, so it was hard and difficult to eat, like the dried meat of the zombie wolf. It must be resistant and hard. Speaking of the wolf, one appeared in the corner, and the 3 of them noticed it from afar. There were several desert wolves. Proto wondered how he could forget those sanguine creatures feasting so boldly would attract other carnivores. He called little Amarlinho to get on top of him because they would take care of the enemies and leave soon. Proto shouted to the wolves, asking if they wanted to fight. He told them to come up because he was already stressed. The wolves started to howl and attack. Proto started shooting at them, hitting one of the guys in the neck. It looked like a Kuru dog. They kept advancing, and he said that wolves really weren't afraid of dying. The girl grabbed one and threw it up while Proto fought the others with his 4 vines. The girl shouted that there was one behind Proto, and Proto said that he was a little careless.